What are you doing? Come
My
here.
goodness.
Okay.
She's getting camera shy now.
Yeah, can you see her in the corner there? Just
Yeah.
sitting there?
Yep. But she's blending in with the bookcase a little bit.
She's so black. When it's nighttime, you cannot
Yeah.
you can't even see her eyes or anything. It's just like a demon shadow.
I just saw a floating vest basically.
Floating a yellow vest right there.
How have you been since the last time we spoke? It's been maybe 3 months now.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been good, just busy cramming along with Midnight Acres. Yeah,
Yeah.
just crunch time.
Have you had a chance to play any games since I know, Midnight Acres is coming out in a couple days, but like in the meantime, have you had a chance to check anything out?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always this year is crazy for games. There's so
We have
many
more
coming
this week.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm installing Spider-Man 2, so I can't wait to play that. I
Yeah.
played Starfield, Lies of P. So I'm definitely getting some gaming going on around here.
Yeah, I just started Starfield last week. And
Oh, nice.
it's a ton of fun. Like I don't know what
Yeah, I mean,
any of the hate was about.
it's definitely getting way more hate than it deserves, and I think most of that's from
Yeah.
PlayStation fans. I think who haven't actually played the game. I definitely think that there's a lot that can be improved upon with the game, but it's a lot of fun. I had a blast with it.
Yeah, I love Fallout 4. I was a big fan of that.
Mhm.
And it's Fallout 4. It's an improved,
Yeah.
visually improved version of Fallout 4 in space.
Have
It's
you
like,
played The Outer Worlds? Outer
yeah.
Worlds?
Yeah,
That
that was
one,
awesome.
that's good. I like that one more. I think that's my like favorite space RPG sort of recently.
What I like about that Outer Wild is that's not the Outer Wilds plural, right?
Well,
You're
there's
talking about
two. Yeah,
yeah.
there's Outer World, I think, which is the
Okay,
Obsidian
okay.
one, and then there's
Yep.
Outer Wilds, which is the like super indie one.
Okay, the indie one I haven't played. I played the Obsidian one.
Yeah, that one I really like. I played both. I really like the Obsidian one though.
Okay, the Obsidian one's the one that you're talking about
Yeah,
being
yeah,
kind of like, yeah. So the Obsidian one I played too, and what I liked about that is it wasn't. It was a good length. It wasn't overly long. It was a
yeah.
good 40 hours, maybe 30. Might have been 30
Yeah, I
hours.
mean that's the struggle with games nowadays. They're so long and over bloated. Like even
Hmm.
Starfield was like, oh my god, cut this in half.
Yeah, I've put maybe like a 10 hours into Starfield so far.
Okay.
Maybe less. Honestly, I might be like 8. But all I kept hearing was how slow the beginning is and how much of a grind it is.
Yeah.
To an extent, I get it, but also I'm just enjoying embracing that aspect of it, embracing the
Yeah.
side quest, which there are so many.
Yeah.
Um, and like each side quest, if you take it slow, it's like okay, uh, or if you take each side quest slow, there's good content there. You know,
There is. There's
there's like
better
good sub
content.
stories.
Yeah, in the side quest than the main quest, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even progressed the main quest. I've been like shoving that off. Like I haven't really touched that yet. I've just been doing because it's like every side quest leads to 10 more, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm easily distracted, and so this game, like I'm just getting distracted left and right. There are just so many different stories going on and little, little plots. I've really enjoyed that part of it, but I do understand like if someone wanted to kind of burn through it and enjoy the gameplay and really,
Yeah.
be this, kind of space bandit type of deal, that it could kind of get boring because,
Yeah.
some of the if you're not reading, or paying really close attention to the
Hmm.
dialogue, then you do miss with the side quest, you'll miss insider jokes or you'll miss,
Yeah. And I
certain
was seeing
things.
like they're so slow with the delivery of their lines in that game.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's so many pauses. I'm constantly having to just read the subtitle, skip,
Yep.
all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I totally get that part of it too. But I read the subtitles and it gets me through it.
yeah.
But I've had fun with it, and I went in with so low expectations because of
Mhm.
what I had heard. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a dumpster fire," and then I went in and I was like, "Not at all. Like I'm
Yeah.
hooked. I'm in. Like this is cool."
I've been in
Another
a
game I oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've been in a CD Project Red phase this
Ooh,
year. I recently, I don't know if you did, I replayed Cyberpunk with the new 2.0 update, and then
yeah,
their new DLC. So good.
yeah. I haven't played the DLC yet, but I've played the 2.0 because I've got an RTX 3080 Ti,
Mhm.
and I wanted to see that new what's the term that they call it? This path tracing
Oh, like the
mode.
ray tracing and everything.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
this maximum overdrive mode,
Hmm.
whatever the mode is. Um, I tried it and that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, just so I'm going through, 2.0. I finished the game, you know, 6 months, seven, maybe longer ago, and it does feel like a totally different game. Feels new,
Yeah.
and I
100%.
haven't
And
even touched the DLC.
the DLC is great. But I appreciate how, I mean, we were just talking about overbloated games. Cyberpunk is like what, 20 hours sort of for the main story, if that. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
so short for the main quest, and then there's side quests and stuff, but it does not overstay its welcome at all, which I really appreciated replaying it.
yeah. You can, if you want to just burn through that main story, you can get through it quick.
Yeah.
And but with that one too, I think I did every side quest. I think I did every one.
I just did, yeah,
Um,
I 100%ed it just now, yeah.
I mean, it took me a while to do that, but the only one, and what was a bummer to me is the first time I completed the game, I thought I completed all the side quests, and then after the game, I had like one left over, and it was that talking gun. Um,
Oh, yeah, Skippy, I think, yeah.
that's the only one I missed, and that was an awesome. I would have loved to early on gotten that gun and got enjoyment out of it. But by the time I got it, I had so many better weapons that it was just like I'm not
Yeah, I
gonna
think
use
I
it.
got lucky with my first playthrough, having that be one of my early side quests.
Yeah, that was that was after I had beaten the game, going back in, and I was like But yeah, this 2.0, the UI is a big improvement. Just managing the menus, navigating
Mhm.
everything, really good.
No,
Like
I
it's
think, yeah, they've improved so much, and it looks like they've learned so much even from their past games. Because right now I'm replaying The Witcher 3, the next gen
ooh,
update,
yeah.
and I mean that game is fantastic. But replaying it again, it is way too long and overbloated, and there's like so much going on. I appreciate how for their next game, Cyberpunk, they kind of toned it down and streamlined everything.
Yeah, and I need to get so I finished The Witcher 3 before the DLC, the Blood and
Mm.
Wine, and I think there was another one.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah, I know. I don't remember what it is, but yeah.
yeah, I played through the main story after they had fixed, like, the launch was kind of sketchy with that
Mhm,
one too, and they'd fixed it up. And then I played it right before the DLCs came out. It was like 2 months later they released the DLCs, but I
mhm.
totally finished the game, and I think somehow my save got deleted. Or I start
Ooh.
no, I started a new playthrough for the DLC, a fresh new playthrough, and I saved over my other file, and so
Oh,
I didn't want to do it all over again and then get to the DLC. So I never checked it out. But
yeah.
yeah, this next gen update, I did boot it up on my computer again just to see like how
Mhm.
does this going to look. I'm excited about it, and even with the 3080 Ti on a 1440p monitor, I couldn't max it out. Even with like
Mm.
DLSS, I think DLSS is supported. Even with that, it was still choppy, and it was
Yeah,
like, man, like
it
This
cuts the
should,
frame rate in half because I'm playing on the Series X, and it's like
yeah.
super smooth, 60 frames per second with no ray tracing. And then when you add in the like graphical setting or whatever like that, it fully cuts it in half. It's like at it maybe 30 frames per second, if that.
Yeah, it bogs it down. But I played it right when the next gen update released. I think it's been improved since then, but it was
Okay.
just choppy. Like you would have, depending on the area you were in, you could get over 60 frames, and then it just. But the fluctuation of the frames. I mean, it was
Got it. Like
really
they had like
choppy.
stutters or something like that.
Stutters, and I'm playing on a 165 hertz display, so once it gets under 60, it looks terrible. You know, it just it's a choppy mess, and that's kind of how it was with that. But I need to get back into that too. There's
Yeah.
so many games,
There. I mean,
but
what would be your game of the year so far?
ooh,
Keeping in mind, we still have
honestly,
some more. We still have some more later.
yeah, it might end up being Spider-Man 2, just because I'm such a big fan of those games.
Yeah,
Um, it might end up. I haven't even played it yet. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet either.
I still haven't for
So
that one either.
yeah, I know. I'll tell you, it's not going to be Zelda. 100%. We talked about
Mm,
that last
yeah,
time. It won't be Zelda.
yeah,
Um, Not even close. Um,
yeah. No Starfield, probably.
Starfield won't be. I am enjoying it. I'm getting enjoyment, but it's not going to be the game of the year for
No,
me.
I mean, I think it should be nominated for everything it accomplishes and for what it sets out to do. But yeah, I mean,
Oh
Spider-Man
yeah,
2, I think, is what's going to take the cake for sure.
Spider-Man 2 is going to be up there. The new Super Mario Wonder, I think,
Mm,
is what
I've
it's
heard that's
called.
good.
That might be up there. Um, but still, to this day, for me, it's going to be Final Fantasy
Oh yeah,
16.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's still going to be it. I know it's not going to be consensus. I know it's not going to win that award anywhere. Um, but that would be for me personally. And yeah, one right now is this game Chained Echoes,
Oh, I've
and it's
never
on
heard of that.
Steam now. I had never heard of it either.
Okay.
And so I had found it through somebody who was talking about Sea of Sky.
Hmm.
I think is what it's called, Sea of Sky. Let me just look that up. Sea of Stars. Sorry, Sea of Stars.
Okay.
And so I was looking that up because I had recently played quite a bit of that. Sea of Stars. Really enjoyed it. Like that's an awesome game. And so I was looking up Sea of Stars, and someone had mentioned it follows a similar line of, Chrono Trigger inspired games like uh, Chained Echoes.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so I was like, what is this chained? And it wasn't just one comment, it was multiple people
Hmm.
referencing this Chained Echoes game. I was like, what is that? And so I looked it up, and it came out in December last year, December 2022.
Okay.
And so I pulled it up and downloaded it, and I've been playing it kind of nonstop. It's I mean it's really good. It's like it has mechs. It's a JRPG, and it's got like mechs and dragons and all the cool stuff that you
Yeah.
expect from these types of games. It's got a turn-based combat, which I'm a big fan. I love
Mhm.
turn-based combat, and like the start of the game, it does a really good job of like it's in a story where you have all these different characters, and they're going to overlap at some point, and they're all going to be at some point their story's going to weave into the
Yeah.
other's story. And but at the start they're all living their separate lives, and they're all doing separate things, kind of like Octopath Traveler. Wait, is that what
Yeah.
it's called?
Octo Traveler, I think.
Octopath Traveler. um that one's similar deal, but in Octopath Traveler I played through it and I can't even remember. I think in that one the stories don't necessarily overlap. They're just
Mhm.
different stories happening in the same world. But in Chained Echoes, You have you get introduced to the individual characters, where they are in their particular part of their story, and then they lead into each other, and then the story progresses from there.
Got it.
And the way that it's introducing each character, it's adding so much depth to their backstory and to the type of character that they are. And each character is really interesting so far. And then you not only do you get introduced to them with a little bit of backstory, but you get to play as them for a little bit. And you have this different, you have like one that's a mercenary, so you're doing these battles, and you're dealing with active war that's going on. And then you have this other one, this this woman who's kind of like a thief, and so you start out as her sneaking around and stealing and
Hmm.
being
I'll have to check
mischievous.
that
And
out.
then
Yeah.
yeah, so you have each character, and the dialogue is great, the backstory is awesome, and the way that each character is introduced is unique. It doesn't get old.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they're all starting to like align, it's
Yeah.
getting really exciting there. And so
Interesting. That sounds cool.
I'm
That's
all
that's
about it
yeah.
with that. But
Well,
another one that's cool in there, I wanted to bring up because it reminds me of Midnight Acres, is Moonstone Island. I don't know if you'd
I've heard of that
heard
one. I
about.
think. Yeah.
Okay, I had the developer on,
Mm-hmm.
Sandy Spink of from that game,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was a really fun call, or fun episode rather. But Moonstone Island is heavily inspired by Stardew Valley, and Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, but it also mixes like creature collecting and battling like
Oh,
Pokemon.
nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's got like a lot of different genre mixes in there too. It's not
Yeah.
just Pokemon. There's also like your roguelike card, roguelike card games that you have.
Yeah,
That's
with
a part of it too.
like a farming sim.
Yeah, there's a farming sim involved, and then like you're building up your kind of, you have your house that you build, and then you can upgrade the house,
Is
and you
it
can
2D
furnish it
or 3D?
2D.
2D,
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's a pixel art. Studio Ghibli is another inspiration with the
Mhm.
games. There's a lot of like really cool creatures and characters that take inspiration from that. And yeah, it's a really really awesome game. That's one that I went ahead and downloaded the moment I bought that one. It, the moment it was launched, which was September 20th,
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
that was shortly after the episode went live. I went and bought that one, and I've been playing it for quite a while. And that's another sneaky good game that came out. And that
Yeah.
was published by Raw Fury.
Oh,
That
I
was
do like Raw Fury, yeah.
oh yeah, they're an outstanding publisher. And
Yeah.
so
They have a lot of good indie games.
yeah, and that's one of the many benefits of working with a publisher like Raw Fury, is it's kind of a way to curate, allow them to curate, these games that are going to be pretty good. Like the benchmark, or at least the barrier of what's good and what's not good. You can, at least with a Raw Fury or Devolver Digital, you can at least
Yeah, I was
know.
gonna bring them up too. Those are the two they have like the best indie games, I think.
Yeah, it's when you look for an indie game, or at least you're going to try one out. If it's published by either one of those, you can at least have a good idea of the quality that it's going to meet.
Yeah.
That benchmark. But yeah, Moonstone Island. That one was interesting because I was speaking with Sandy. It's like tiny team. They had been
Mhm.
working on this game for like 2 years, maybe three, not long, and the scope of it is, when you hear about it and you hear them talk about the all the different features and the type of game that it is, and you just, as I'm hearing it, if I was a publisher and I was being pitched that, it would be red flag city. It would just be like, this is a
Yeah,
scope
yeah.
nightmare. There's no way. And so for Raw Fury to actually sign off on it and be like, yeah, sure, I think you can do it. That was a big deal on their end,
For
because
sure.
like this, it's a new developer. Like this is not to if I remember correctly, the developer of Moonstone Island, like they're not a veteran team,
Yeah.
Studio Supersoft,
Well,
and
what probably
so
helps is it's 2D, which helps with like
yep.
some of the scope. Like that's sort of why I was asking, because if it was 3D,
Hmm.
all of those characters and animals and stuff like that would probably be a real tricky thing to put in there.
Yeah, and that's what Sandy had mentioned is being 2D allowed them,
Hmm.
to kind of scale it up and do that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I can see that. It's definitely um, it's good, I think, when you're developing a game to have a lot of realistic things in mind for like what you can accomplish and what you can't accomplish and what can help you accomplish certain things, like how 2D is easier to customize art and customize all of these things more so than 3D. And I think that was definitely an issue that I started running into uh, with my game when I made it, because I don't think I what am I trying to say? I don't think I like planned out maybe some of the pain points of my game properly when I first started developing it. It was sort of one of those like, oh, I'm just going to make this, I'm going to make that, I'm going to put this in there, not focusing on certain things like optimization, certain things like that up until the end where everything's such a learning experience with how you make games, and each game is made differently. But yeah, I think it's so important to know your resources and what you can do before you actually make the game.
yeah, yeah. Did you ever have any scope creep with Midnight Acres along the way?
Scope creep. Well, let me close this window real quick. It's getting the sun is coming out. Hold on, un momento. There we go. That might be better. Let me check this out. Oh, that looks way better. Scope creep. What's scope creep?
So like when you're adding different features, different mechanics, and then you start to get to a point to where you're getting outside of the boundaries of what the initial scope was, and you're just starting to expand it a bit too much to the point to where it's never going to get done.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I've never heard of that scope creep. Yeah, I mean it's like honestly like the yin and yang almost, in terms of like when you're an indie developer, you want to add as many things as possible to your game, because the more things that are in your game, the more it compares to the bigger AAA games, and people are willing to spend more money on it and play it more and make more videos. So you always want to add so much to your game. But then it comes to the point where I was dealing like last month, I kept adding things to my game. And then it was like, okay, I need to actually come out with the game. I need to actually release the
Yep.
game to start getting like some more income coming in. I need to just get the game out there and stuff like that. So I think it's important with that, at least, to have certain things where it's like, okay, this is something that I actually need to add in the game. This is an important part. This is something that can be added in a little later, maybe doesn't need to be added in, or even something, like the phrase killing your babies, in terms of like, oh, I have these cool effects over here. I have all of these cool
Yeah.
effects, but oh, is it worth, lowering the frame rate for all of those effects? Probably not. All right, let me delete all of those. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Unless you cyberpunk and then you just like turn it up,
Unless you're a
start melting.
multi-million-dollar company, yeah.
Yeah. So with Midnight Acres, how long? We might have talked about this in the last episode, but I can't remember. How long have you been working on it? We had to
I
have
mean, I
talked
don't
about that.
even know really. It was one of those things that like when I started developing it, it wasn't like I am starting to develop this game right now. It
Yeah.
was like, ooh, kind of messing around here, kind of messing around there, and then it kind of like formed into something.
Hmm.
Maybe like 10 months.
Okay.
Probably like
Yeah.
10 months to a year, like all things considered.
Yeah. And in terms of like promotion, marketing, what are some of the things, the activities that you've done, or tasks rather? that you've done along the way?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good question because this isn't my first game that I've come out with.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like the biggest game I've come out with, and it's the game that I've come out with that I've seen the most pre-release hype for in terms of like wish list numbers and stuff like that. Um, First off, I think it's just each game that comes out gets more and more. That's just like exponential growth. The more games you come out with, the more people are going to follow it, check it out, and buy it. But there's certain advertising things that I guess I was just learning about with Midnight Acres, at least.
Mm.
Like with all of my other games, I was trying to do YouTube ads, Google ads, stuff like that. And I was trying it with Midnight Acres, and it just was not working. It wasn't getting any clicks, no engagement. I tried Twitter ads, that wasn't working really, and I had to sign up for Twitter Verified, which was super lame. Um, but the thing that worked was Reddit ads. Reddit ads were the
Okay.
main thing that I saw that converted a few clicks to the Steam page and uh, helped kind of build that out. And then I think it was just an organic. The more clicks it got, the more Steam was, I guess, kind of pushing it out, which got more
Yeah.
clicks, and then it was just like this exponential process.
That's awesome. Have you seen? There's a video that recently came out from Steam, and it adds clarity. And let me pull it up here,
Yeah, I've
just so
never
I
seen
can.
that.
Yeah, so it's a recent video directly from Steam. They debunk some of the myths on Steam in terms of wish list numbers and curation, and can you pay someone at Valve or at Steam rather to promote your game?
Mhm.
Obviously, that's not a thing, but they debunk a lot of those myths and they add clarity to all of the spots on new and trending, upcoming, and so on,
Interesting.
and
Okay.
how the algorithms or the processes of getting on those sections, how that works.
I'll have to check
Um,
that out. Yeah, that's super. I know there's so many rumors in terms of like I heard something where your game doesn't even get pushed out really on Steam until it has like 10,000 wish lists or some crazy number like that.
yep. So the video, I'm loading it up here. It's called. Let me just get through this ad that has to play. Um, this Liberty Mutual ad. Uh, so the video, and I'll share it with you. It's called it's Steam Visibility: How Games Get Surfaced to Players, and it's from the
Interesting.
Steamworks Development YouTube channel. Yeah, really, really valuable uh, video to watch. There's so much information there, and it just goes over exactly what is meaningful, what they look for, um, and how games get visibility.
Interesting.
And
I'll definitely have to
there
check
are
that out.
certain sections like
Hmm.
on Steam where it is curated,
Hmm.
and there are others that are algorithmic, and a lot of it is personalized to the individual,
Mm-hmm.
which is why tags are such a big deal, and understanding not just the right tags for your game, but like the right order of the tags, what's actually relevant, what actually applies to your game, not trying to use tags as a way to hack visibility or discoverability rather, but using
Hmm.
them to accurately you know uh, identify or accurately describe what your game is. That's one of the you know it's just a lot of logical things in the
Hmm.
video, but really good video. It's a longer video too. It's like 25 minutes
I mean, that
with
sounds
just
good
all
though,
sorts of.
because it's a struggle definitely with Steam in terms of like Steam is just like this shrouded mystery that it's hard to get a hold of people. It's like the documentation is just like text block essays of things. It's hard to kind of know what to do to upload a game and stuff, especially for people who don't normally do it or one man crews or stuff like that.
Yep, and it's that's why the video was such a, and it came out of nowhere, but the video was such a it just kind of it was exciting. Like when it came out, it was, or surprising rather. It was something that no one knew was coming, and
Mhm.
they came out, and this was something that they needed to have produced years ago.
Oh, I mean,
And
100%.
yeah, but now it's a thing. Better late than never. And it is full of excellent. I need to get off it. It is a good video, full of excellent information, and it's good to watch and bookmark and rewatch, because it lays everything out. But at the end of the day, it kind of just goes down, or comes down to sales.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Wish lists are a key indicator of purchase intent, but it's not like, if you meet 100,000 wish lists, that they're like, all right, let's open the floodgates for this game. If they don't convert to sales, then it doesn't matter. So it's all
Yeah.
about, all right, what game's actually getting the most sales,
Mhm.
and in what, what period of time, these games are getting the most sales, which makes sense. They need to get their money. They need to get their revenue share.
Yeah.
And so if X game is going to bring in more revenue, then they're going to give it more visibility.
No, it's
And
so,
so,
yeah, it makes sense, and it's so interesting how it happens. I just like keep up with Steam charts for different games and stuff like that. And I was seeing like one of the big indie games of this year, the Dave the Diver game, was
yeah,
like one
yeah,
of those examples of like I was watching the Steam charts, and it came out a while before it blew up, and its Steam charts were just kind of like that, and then one day it just went boop and just
yeah.
totally took over the whole indie game page on Steam.
Yeah, Dave the Diver. Let me pull that one up. That one, if I remember correctly, there was some discourse over, was it actually an indie?
Really,
Um,
I didn't know about that. I haven't heard that actually.
yeah, let
Like,
me
what
let me
does
see
that
if
mean?
I.
Like, it was developed by a big company on the low key or something like that?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, which I kind of don't. If I remember correctly, what it was, I mean, it was a massive publisher, and the developer, I believe, was also uh, a large developer. Let me check out
Interesting.
their
That
LinkedIn
might
and
make
see how many
sense though,
employees.
because I think I saw that the developer didn't develop anything before that, so they might have like broken off by some big company or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I'm trying to find them on LinkedIn to see what's
Interesting.
going
I've
on
never
there.
heard of that.
But the publisher, I believe, is Nexon, which is
Oh yeah, they're big, right?
huge. They're huge.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they've
definitely not an indie game publisher.
yeah. Nexon America, on their LinkedIn, they have over 504. They have 544 employees
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Nexon America.
I mean, I have a huge issue with indie games that aren't actually indie games. I guess that's an example. But there's so many indie games where like you look at the credits afterwards and it's just like hundreds of people in the credits, and it's like this is not an indie game. This is a triple A double A game masquerading as an indie game.
Yeah, that's such a that term early on, um, when I was working, maybe 7 years ago. I had gotten to this point when I was like, you know what? I don't like the term indie.
Hmm.
I want to. I would like to see it kind of removed. But I'm coming around to it more, as more really good indies come out, or games that fit that term.
Hmm.
But early on, I didn't like it because, as a consumer, as a general consumer, that term never means good. It's
No,
never like, I never hear indie and think, oh, that's going to be awesome. You know, it's never it's never a positive
no. I mean,
for
I feel
for
like indie shouldn't be a term. It should be there should be very specific budget and number of employee amounts for either like single A, double A, triple A, and that's like the categories they should be.
It's like that. Where because say you get published by Devolver,
Mhm.
or you're published by Raw Fury, well then you're kind of not independent anymore. You've got a publisher. You're not indie. You're
Yeah,
published.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I guess you could still say like I'm independent. I own the IP. We're independently developing this with the backing of a publisher, but still, it it never, like, as a tag on Steam putting indie in there,
Hmm.
um, which still do it, by the way. If
It's
anyone's
in.
listening,
It
they're like,
is. It's
oh,
there.
maybe I
It
should.
is. It's there
Yeah,
from
like
mine.
use it, especially if it is relevant to your game. If you're an independently, if you're an independent developer, then yes, use that tag. But um, from a consumer standpoint, like I've never used Steam and been like, let me check the indie games for the next game that I personally want to purchase.
Yeah.
Maybe there are consumers out there that specifically like the independently created games, but I would assume or think that's a minority, like a small minority, and probably people that have some over. I think there'd probably be a high overlap of people that search for indie games to play that are aspiring developers themselves,
Yeah, yeah, and I
and that
think
might
like
be.
Stardew Valley is the perfect example of like that should be an indie game because it was made by
Mm-hmm.
one person. It was a
Yep.
passion project. Like that's the definition of an indie game. A game, sort of like Subnautica. That's like that is an indie game, but like in my opinion, that's the next level of indie game. Like Stardew Valley's the A,
Yeah.
Subnautica's kind of like the double A, and then you go into
Mm-hmm.
the triple A where you are a full fledged game development studio. And I know we were just talking about a lot of people consider Obsidian's Outer Worlds an indie game or like a double A game, and it's like
Yeah.
how is that considered an indie game or a double A game?
No. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the line gets fuzzy, and that's the thing. Like that's one of the reasons why I don't like the term indie, is because I see it used as a crutch sometimes,
Yeah.
because they want the consumers to be like, okay, this is obviously not Starfield, and then go in it with lower expectations. But really, that should never be a big deal. What it really should be is, like we spoke about earlier, scope creep.
Hmm.
As an indie, it just means that you have to be tighter. You just got to be tighter with the scope of the game and what you want the experience to be, and make sure that the attention to detail is absurd, and that experience that you're carving out, while it doesn't have to be an open world Elden Ring, it can be an isolated, compact experience that is so focused that it can compete and punch with any game.
And those are
And
always
it
the
can.
best indie games. Yeah, I mean, you look at like
Yeah.
Super Hot. Super Hot,
Super hot. Yep.
when it released, didn't have a story, didn't have characters, didn't have anything. It literally was just one gameplay mechanic that was done really well, and I think that's something I struggle with all the time. That's something sort of like I was saying with Midnight Acres, where it's like I wish that I could go back in time and be like, okay, focus more on this and this. Don't focus more on this, and that's why. Yeah, I'm still so happy that I made Midnight Acres because I learned so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now with my next games, it's like, all right, I want to take everything I learned and streamline it into a smaller game that focuses on small gameplay mechanics and not a big world and all of these things where it's like, all right, kind of reaching a little too far right there.
Yeah. There's one that recently came out called Eternights.
I've never heard of that.
Eternights. Um, it's an independent game, so it's a smaller. I think it might be one developer. It's one developer with a bunch of contributors, I believe. If I remember correctly, it's a small. Regardless, it's a small team, and it's it's their take on Persona.
Okay.
So it's like, that's ambitious. So going after
Yeah.
that right out of the gate, like that's incredibly ambitious, and that's a game that I recently played, and it's like, if they would have just trimmed the fat and
Mm,
focused on a core experience and really just, again, hyper focus on a very specific experience, the game would have been significantly better. It's one of those games that makes it glaringly obvious that it is an indie because of the wrong reasons. Because you see it and you see this attempt, this crack at a big scope. And even if it's a good attempt, it's
It
like,
still doesn't
okay,
reach the. It just still doesn't reach it.
yeah, because when you're a small team and you're out there swinging the bat at this larger scope game like an indie Persona, well, now that's directly what you're in competition with.
Yeah.
So if someone, with someone coming out as a consumer wanting to play, games like Persona, well, now your game is going to be directly compared to that game. And do you meet that quality? Because if you don't meet that quality, your reviews are going to be negative. The reviews are not going to be, they're going to be subpar at best,
Mm-hmm.
because from a reviewer standpoint, that's the bar. You set the bar. You clearly set the bar.
Yeah.
And so now that's your direct competition from a reviewer standpoint. From a consumer standpoint, that's what you're going to be thinking about. If you've played Persona, you love those games, now you're going to play that game. Well, now you're going to be, all of the issues that make it less than or not as good as Persona are going to be, they're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with Eternights. Is like, it's got this dungeon crawling experience, which from that standpoint is fine. And then it's got this social link thing where you have conversations with other characters and you build up your relationships with them, which is nowhere near as in depth and intricate,
Mm-hmm.
and as good as Persona. So that, from that standpoint, sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, whoa, that's not as good. It's cool that it's there, but it's just not. It's like a pizza that was in the oven for like a minute. It's like, I can see what this could have been. Like, I
Yeah.
know that this could have been awesome, but it's just not. And then on top of that, there's just these cutscenes and the way that they move the story along from room to room. Like when you're dungeon crawling and you get through section to section, and they start to have a cutscene, they're really kind of janky in a way.
Yeah.
And so it's not smooth. The pacing's a bit off. But again, if it was just a more focused, if they really had hyper attention to detail and focus on a much smaller scope
Mm-hmm.
of a game that maybe had some elements of Persona but wasn't trying to be a Persona, um, then it would have been a drastically different experience. The perception of the game would have changed drastically. That said, I think Eternights is doing really well.
Okay.
I think sales wise, it's doing great
A,
because
well, a game I wanted to. I've totally forgot the name of the game.
yeah.
I wanted to bring it up when we were talking about indie. A
Mm-hmm.
game that sort of grinds my gears a lot in terms of like the indie talk is Stray, that cat game.
Oh yeah, I haven't played that yet.
Awesome, like I love cats. That's an awesome
Mm-hmm.
game, but like I saw the behind the scenes of that game. They have a huge sound stage where they have a cat with like the mocap balls all over it
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
these movements and all of these things where it's like, at what point is that now not an indie game? They have access to all of these different resources, and I
yeah,
don't think it should be in the same category as something even like a Stardew Valley or something like that.
yeah, yeah. That one visually is stunning.
Of course,
I
yeah.
remember from the trailers, like how good that one looked, and that. But for me, that one always had a vibe of like a double A. That never had a
Mm,
vibe of an indie game for me, just because of how high quality the announcement trailer was,
got it.
and like the first gameplay of it. It was
Mhm.
like, whoa, like there's just interacting with the other cats
Yeah, there's like some
and
money
seeing
behind this.
the robots and how they were animated.
Mhm.
And it was like, all right, this is clear. This is not a one person shop.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But yeah, I get what you're saying with that. It's tough. And the thing is, again, from a consumer standpoint, they don't care.
Exactly.
It's like, what is the experience that you're giving me or that you're trying to sell me on? That's all they care about is that. And once you start throwing labels into the mix, it sets expectations or starts to set expectations, but I don't know if that necessarily needs to be done. I think it should be more of show to tell and setting those expectations by what you're showing off, I guess, in a way.
Yeah,
But
I
when
mean,
you start to label it with an indie tag to set those expectations, um, it comes off a little bit more of a self-conscious
yeah, no, and I
way
think
to,
it should
yeah.
just be like decided by the price point too, where it's like, normal
Yeah, oh
games
yeah.
are 60,
Yep.
$70 now. A game like Stray, where it's like, okay, this is an indie game. It's not, developed by Activision or anything, but it's still,
Yep.
not a super indie game. Like that should be probably like 30, $35. Like that should be kind of like the,
Yep.
the halfway mark of something like that. Then the lower indie games are in the 20s. Then maybe the solo indie games are like in the tens, something like that.
Yep. And that makes a ton of sense. That also speaks more to, again, if you wanted to have indie associated with the budget of the game, well then that's accurately reflected in the price of the
Yes,
game
yeah.
for the consumer, because then there's less to recoup to make your profit. So from that standpoint, that makes a ton of sense. And I do love the idea of, instead of specifically labeling something as indie, reflecting that through your price,
Mhm.
from a premium game, reflecting it via the price is a much better way to go about it from a consumer standpoint, because then it's like, oh, it's only $15. So then your perception of what you expect or what you want out of that experience is always going to be lower than what
Yes,
you'd expect from a $70 game,
for sure,
which now like the premiums are $70.
which is ridiculous.
Um,
But I mean, it's like it's so hard though to pick a price for your game,
yeah,
when you're not in like just the $70 range. I can't tell you how many times I have adjusted the pricing of Midnight Acres on Steam before it
yeah,
releases, just because I don't have a number, because it's like I'd pay this much for it, but it's my game. I'm a little self-conscious. All right, maybe I'll lower it a tiny bit. But then, oh, like
yep,
I need to, make some money off of it. All right, let me raise. And it's like the struggle of like how much do you need to make it worth it for you, but how much are you being realistic that somebody is going to pay to play this game and then not refund it, 2 hours later.
yep. Yeah, and I think with pricing, I had been arguing years ago. I see it might have been 2021 when inflation started to really become clear that it was getting crazy. I was pushing everyone to raise your prices on games,
Hmm.
because the price of food, the price of everything is going up. The price of, literally, you go to Target, everything is up,
Yeah.
way up. Snacks, whatever. Like there was a great or there was a trending video on TikTok the other day. I think it was TikTok. It was of a person shopping at Costco, and they were showing off, literally the year prior, 12 months prior, they took photos of the
Wow.
same items
Uh-huh.
and then showed, well, this is what I'm seeing. So they were like, this isn't 7% increase here, or inflation. This is like 50 to 70%. Some of the items were like $6 the year prior, and now they were like $14.
Oh
And
my
it was
god.
like, and they were showing, like, they had receipts, they had photos from the 12 months prior. They were showing like these batteries were, this price, and now they're more than double. And it was crazy to see it, and
Yeah.
especially at a place like Costco, where that's meant to be
The
at
bargain
sold
one.
at
Yeah.
cost. Yeah. And so when you see that, it's like, video games, they're getting more expensive to make.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, at some point, you got to raise those prices because everything's going up. And it's expected from the consumer at this point. Um, anything they buy, it's going to cost more.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a struggle because
and
like
with,
I I don't as a consumer, I don't want the games to be $70, but as a developer, I
yep,
want the games to be $70 because I
yep,
understand all of the struggles they go through. And it's hard though, because like, would I spend $70 on the new Call of Duty? No, there's
no,
universe that would ever happen, you know, because it's just the same and it's the struggle of like, you know, a game like it's just the only game I'm thinking of right now for some reason, Outer Worlds or Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Yeah.
have so many new things in them. They're new experiences. They you're like, oh, I'm playing something new for the very first time. All right, I'm willing to spend the $70 on Cyberpunk, on all of these things, but on, you
Yeah.
know, the new yearly Madden, the new yearly Call of Duty, all of
Yep.
these things where it's like, why do some companies get away with it and some companies don't get away with it? Or you look at Nintendo, where their games don't go down in price, but you know, it kind of makes sense because of the quality of them.
Yeah. I mean, and you're starting to see, well, it's been around for a while, but Game Pass is doing a lot now to mitigate that
I
in a
love
way.
Game Pass.
Starfield's already there, you know. Yeah, and that's how I started playing Starfield, was through Game Pass. I wasn't going to spend the full price on the game. I'm just waiting for Black Friday for a lot of these games because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, you know, there's nothing right now that's like a can't miss for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna wait it out. But especially for Baldur's Gate 3, that's one where I know around Black Friday, that's a perfect time for them to discount it.
Yeah.
It will have been out just long enough where at that point they can give a nice little discount there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but Game Pass was good because a game like Starfield, I would have waited until Black Friday to pick that up, or at least a deep discount.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I can just pay what is it, like $15, I think, per month,
Yeah.
and then to play it on PC, and then I get it there, and I get access to all these other games.
I totally agree with you. There's so many games that I would have never played that if they weren't on Game Pass. Like Lies of P is on Game
Yep,
Pass.
that's a great example of one. I
Yeah,
think Lies of P for a lot of people
never would have.
wouldn't have gotten.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
and Game Pass did great for that.
Hi-Fi Rush was the
Yep,
that one. The rat
that's
the
another
rat
one.
medieval games, the Plague Tale games. Have you played
Mm-hmm.
those?
Yeah, in VR, right?
You played those
No. Plague. No, yeah, no.
I was gonna say
I
that
know what
sounds
I was.
terrifying.
Yeah, no, I did play Plague's Tale, the first one, not the new one.
Got it.
I haven't played the new one yet, but I played the first one, and that was Game Pass, I believe.
I think it was
Yeah,
that was an example of like I wanted to play those games, but I probably wouldn't have spent the money to play them. But it's on Game
100%.
Pass.
Yeah, and that's perfect for those AA
Mm-hmm.
type of games where it's not full AAA. Like I'm not fully sold there. I don't
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
crazy high expectation, but the quality looks good. I don't know if Stray is on Game Pass, but if it was, that'd be a perfect
It's
spot for
not,
it.
which is why I haven't played it, but I think it's on the PlayStation version of Game Pass.
Okay,
But I'm
yeah,
not sure.
I like that all these platforms have those.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say on the other side of it, the subscription services, they've lowered my barrier to, or they've lowered my threshold of giving a game the benefit of the doubt. If I boot up a game on Game Pass and it even remotely starts to bore me, uninstalled, I'm on to the next one because there's so much to choose from. I'm not gonna like, you're not gonna be able to hold my attention, or at least keep me as a player if there starts to become any sort of issues, bugs, or just being boring in general. It's going to get uninstalled and then on to
I
the next.
totally agree. I mean, that honestly is kind of. I was playing Lies of P, having a great time, and then halfway
Mm-hmm.
through, I was like, I just kind of played Elden Ring. I'm kind of done with this right
Yep.
now. There's some other like Spider-Man 2, all of these things. I'm kind of done with that, and that definitely
Yeah.
doesn't happen if I pay for a game. I have to beat
Yep.
it. I think the only one that I didn't was Assassin's Creed Valhalla because it was so ridiculously. I think I was 70 hours in, and I saw that I was like barely halfway through the story.
I got exhausted on that.
It's
I
too
got
long.
so, there was a point where I was like, I have to be at the end.
And then
I
you
have
look
to
and
be
you're
at
like,
the end.
how is there still more to do?
Yeah. Yeah, that one I still need to go back and finish that because I was enjoying it. I loved the theme,
Yeah,
the Viking theme.
cut half
I
of
thought
it.
that was
Cut
cool.
half of it down. Cut 3/4 of it down.
Cut 80% of that thing, and it's still a long game. Like I think I put around 70 in it as well.
Yeah,
And it was like, I'm not even close here. What is going? Because I like to do the side quests and stuff, you
yeah.
know. And that is a game where if you want to go that route, you got content for days, literally days.
And I think The
And
Witcher 3 is a better version of that in terms of The Witcher 3 is still
yeah,
so bogged down with unnecessary quest systems, stories, all of
hmm,
that. But if you just look
yeah,
at the quality of The Witcher 3's content versus Assassin's Creed Valhalla's copy and pasted content, and I think
yep,
they're slowly learning. I think what they did with Mirage, Assassin's Creed Mirage, how it's like $40 or something like that. That's
yeah.
smart.
That's solid.
That's smart.
That's solid. I didn't even know that that was the case. I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because I haven't played it yet. But I've heard
Yeah,
it like started as a DLC for Valhalla, and then they liked it, so they kind of made it their own spin-off game, and it's still like not very long, so it's
yeah,
$40. But good. I mean, I miss the 16-hour Assassin's Creed games.
yeah, yeah. It's 49.99,
Okay,
but when you have other games that are 69.99, that is a significant difference. And 49.99 when I was growing up, that was the premium price. That was the premium.
got it.
You go to GameStop, and that was the top tier premium game price was $50. Then it went up to 60, and now it's 70.
I think the 50
Um,
was slightly before my time. I was in
yeah,
the
50. That was
60.
that was my like that was my heyday with the $50, and that
The
was awesome.
I would imagine
That was
so. Geez, 50?
$50. I think Miles Morales was similar with Spider-Man. I think that
That,
was
I think
50
that was
bucks
40,
right out of the gate.
which I
That
mean,
might have been 40.
that game was ridiculous. So,
But that's another example of like that's a solid price point. If you
mhm.
for a premium game to get it to 40, $50, whatever it ends up being, that's a lot of good value. And that is something if you can for Mirage, I think that the reviews I saw a handful of reviews. They weren't the greatest in the world, but they were
Mhm.
good. It was like this is a good step
Yeah,
forward towards old school Assassin's Creed, and I think in part that price I mean that encourages that kind of sentiment where if it was a $70 game, they'd be like, this is a try and fail.
yes,
At least
yes.
that could have been the narrative. That quickly could have been the narrative so I think setting that price point, I think that helped with Miles Morales a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. And they
Being
just
that,
did that with Phantom Liberty. I think is $40.
yeah, well, actually, I think it's 30. Let me
That's a good
pull
deal if
that one
that's
up.
30.
How long did it take you? Did you finish it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took me like 15 hours, and I still have a few side things to do. So it's pretty sizable.
Yeah, it's $30,
Yeah.
$29.99.
No, I
So
mean
that
they
one,
add so much to that game and so much content where it's like $30 for that. That easy.
yeah,
That's easy.
yeah, I need to get into that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I had that one. Oh, man, I don't know if I want to do that one or Baldur's Gate 3 first or next
I mean,
rather.
it's and there's so many. I know, like I think Ubisoft is still coming out with like there's one more Star Wars game coming out this year, like their Outlaws game or something, and it's just like I hope it's good. I have such a love hate relationship with Ubisoft. I love so many of their IPs,
Yeah,
Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, but they just they're falling off. They've been falling off.
yeah. I mean, every once in a while they do come out with a banger,
Oh,
and
I mean,
it's
yeah, I mean, yeah, and they're the team that they have with their world building, like even like a game like a
mm-hmm.
mediocre Far Cry 6, still the
Yep,
world, all of that, great, but they just don't,
yep,
innovate enough with gameplay.
yeah. I mean, this week we get Alan Wake 2.
Good
We
one.
get the Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume
Jeez.
1, I believe. Um, there's like two other that come out. this week too. Like this week is just like we get Ghost Runners 2
Oh,
this
that's a good
week.
one. Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Like, man, yeah, we're getting so many crazy games
Yeah.
that are coming out. That said, Ghost Runner 2, I guess their review embargo's up, and on Open Critic it's got a 79
Oh, the
at the
reviews are
moment.
coming out for that one.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. I mean, yeah, it's.
79.
I remember I was scared. I think like 3 years ago, there was such a dip in games for a few years. I remember, and it was just like, oh no, we're entering just like the mediocre era of games, and I'm very happy that this year and next year look like they're gonna have a lot of bangers.
Well, COVID pushed everything back at least a year, if not
Yeah.
two. It pushed everything back, and now everyone's sandwiched together, which is awesome. But also,
It's
I
awesome
think
for us.
like that's gonna, yeah, it's awesome for the consumer, and but I don't think it's sustainable. I think we're gonna have a year. It might be 2025 where we get a rut because
Oh, there's
all
I'm
these games are packed.
Have you seen the Ken Levine, the guy who made BioShock? He's coming out with his next game in 2025, I think.
Good
That'll be. I
lord,
think it's called Judas. That's
BioShock
BioShock's my
is one of my
favorite.
favorite games of all
It's
time.
mine. It's BioShock is so good. And now they're making a
I
movie.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think they were. I don't know if you heard all of like I know they were supposed to make a BioShock movie like way 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 back in the day with Gore Verbinski, the Pirates of the Caribbean director, which would have been
Whoa.
awesome. And he wanted to make it R, of course, because it's Bioshock. And the
Oh yeah.
studio wanted it to be PG-13 because it was before all of these high-grossing R-rated movies like The Joker and all of these came out. And it got
Yeah.
shelved, and it's just been sort of in development hell. And now I think finally Netflix is making a Bioshock movie, so I hope it's good.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like Twisted Metal just got a well, not just. It's I think there's
Yeah,
already a season 2 out.
no, I
But
think you're right. I
like
think it just came out, and then Fallout's coming out with a TV show.
mhm. I like it. I like this new, picking video game IPs and then just making a show.
There's so many good
Um
stories out there, and it's a struggle. So,
BioShock's right up there.
I mean, yeah, but there's so many good stories told badly from the movies. I mean, you look at like Assassin's Creed, fantastic game, horrible movie. Tomb Raider,
I didn't even know there was an Assassin's Creed movie.
it was Michael Fassbender. I think it was like 8 years ago or something like that. The Halo TV show sucks. Tomb Raider, Uncharted, all of these things where it's like a Tomb Raider movie that would be so good, and it's just
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the earlier ones too. That was
yeah. I think
early.
Warcraft. There's so, but it looks like we're finally in the era with like The Last of Us and all of these, where hopefully people are figuring
Yeah.
out how to adapt games.
I thought the Last of Us was going to be average because once I heard that it was just telling the same story as the game, I was like, okay. I played it multiple times. Like I get it. I don't need to see that
Mhm.
again. And then I watched it. I was like, nope, this is awesome.
Yeah,
This is great.
I'm the opposite, I guess, because it's like in my head, it's like you have the stories that you can copy. Like in my opinion,
Hmm.
if you make a Last of Us TV show, it's already like one of the greatest stories of all time. Just copy it. If you're making a Red Dead TV show or movie, just copy it. But like for Bioshock doesn't really have a narrative story per se, in terms of like characters and stuff like that. So
The
that's a
world's so
great
good though.
one. Hmm?
Yeah. The world's so good with BioShock.
Yeah, just make
I mean that
your own detective movie in
there's
action.
so much flexibility with that. There's so much flexibility with BioShock.
But then if
You
they
can do
make
a lot of
Bioshock
different things with that.
Infinite, I'd want them to maybe do a little bit of copying.
Yeah. Well, the original BioShock, that one, I had no idea until it might have been like the week prior. I don't know what got me on it, but I just vividly remember going to GameStop and on launch day, and I went in to buy a copy, and they said the only copy we have left is the collector's edition. And that was the one with the Big Daddy figurine
Oh, I
in
mean
it.
that's yeah.
That was the coolest thing ever, and it was like $100, and I bought it. And I wouldn't have made a purchase like that unless I was really sold on the game. So I can't remember what it was. Kind of like Dark Souls for me, where when Dark Souls came out, that one I didn't know anything about until like the week prior, and then I saw an
Mm.
IGN. They did like a gameplay. It might have been IGN or G4 TV, one of the two. They were doing a let's play, or not a let's play, but they were doing like a little playthrough with commentary live, and I was watching it, and I was like, "Whoa, this game looks awesome!" And so I went and bought Dark Souls day one. I think something similar happened with BioShock. It might have been a review.
Hmm.
Literally, it could have been Game Informer magazine. There could have been a
Yeah,
review
that
that
was
was like, "This
my
is
main
a 10
magazine
out of
as a
10."
kid, as a kid. Yeah, getting the Game Informer magazines.
That was the bomb.
Um,
Yeah.
I think I remember. I don't know if you had this when you were younger, but like in my young dumb brain, I was like everything with a two is guaranteed better than the first one. I don't know why. In my brain, I was like,
Oh wow.
well, if they make a sequel, it's got to be better than the first one because it's the second
Mm-hmm.
one. It's got to be better.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I remember I played like Assassin's Creed 2 before I played Assassin's Creed 1. Good thing, better game.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah. Yeah.
played Bioshock 2 before I played Bioshock 1 because I was like, it
Whoa.
takes place in Rapture. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
better version. Um, and Bioshock 2 is great. Bioshock 2 is really good, but I mean, it
It
nowhere in
is.
comparison to the first one at all.
Well, it's also the first one. It's that moment when you're going down the elevator, and then you first see the like underwater
Oh my god.
world, and then that moment when it's like there's this whale. I can't even remember
Yeah,
what
and
it
it's I
was.
think
Just
it's
kind
the
of
when
come.
like the violins are happening right there, and it's just like,
Yeah, their introduction was top tier. Like that was 10 out of 10 right out of the gate. Like this is
I
insane.
mean, I'm almost glad I
Um,
didn't play it because I think I was too. It was one of those things where like I was too young to probably appreciate everything that
oh
game was
man,
doing.
yeah, yeah. That one took me by surprise. I think it was Game Informer because I didn't know what the gameplay elements were going to be
Mm.
or be like at all.
Hmm.
So I bet what had happened is I had a Game Informer magazine. I was looking for a game. It probably was a 10 out of 10,
Hmm.
and I didn't look up any gameplay or anything. And I think that's probably I literally think what happened was the score
Hmm.
did it. And so, but yeah, played it, and I just remember the all of the different kind of abilities that you could get in the game
Yeah, like
from the
the
FPS
plasmids. Yeah,
perspective. That was amazing.
yeah.
And setting up the traps, and oh my god,
There's
it
so many
was.
games where like I wish I could erase my memory and
Yep.
experience it without like if I could go back in time and experience a game like BioShock, a game like Portal, a game like all of these things with no expectations
Yeah.
or anything in mind and just go at it like fresh, that would
Yep.
that would be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, because there's that initial feeling when you start to when everything starts to open up and you start
Hmm.
to get this new experience that's not like really anything else before. That's awesome.
There's no better feeling in my opinion where like you boot up a game and you're like an hour in and you're like this is clicking. This is all clicking really
Yep.
well.
And then you get that like hyper focus where
Yeah.
everything else around the TV or the monitor just goes away.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize, in the moment you do realize it, you're snapped back to reality. You're like, oh shit. I had like 4 hours gone. What happened?
Oh my god, it's 2
Like that.
a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. It's dark out. And you're like, what just happened? I haven't even eaten. Um, yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, that kind of, so like with this podcast, I've been really enjoying it.
Mhm.
I've had a chance to like I'm getting to chat with a lot of cool people and hear the history of their game development and the games they're working on and all that stuff. And while this is happening, I've been doing a lot of social media posting,
Mhm.
clipping up all the episodes and posting on 6 social channels. I'm trying to like really grind this thing out
Mhm.
and post everywhere. But while I was doing that, I had this thought of another podcast, and I'm trying not to get ahead of myself and start another one. But I had this other one because I'm finding that the clips that I'm posting that are doing the best are when I'm just talking about, or the other person is talking about a game or um, like an IP or franchise that they really like or they have like strong feelings about, and they just kind of gush over it a little bit.
Mhm.
Those end up being the best because there's something that we can all kind of relate to.
Mhm.
When you have a group of friends and you're talking about um, maybe your favorite game or
Oh,
your
yeah, yeah.
favorite show or whatever, and then you just kind of get to nerd out about that. There's something about it, even just listening to it, that's really entertaining.
Yeah.
um, and it's got me thinking, have you heard of the podcast Rewatchables?
I think so. I think I've heard of the name.
Okay, so the Rewatchables, that's a podcast where I think it's Bill Simmons uh, is the host of it, and they I think it's Bill Simmons. I don't want to be wrong on that. Let's see. Bill Simmons. Yeah, it's Bill Simmons. So on the podcast, they each week they do one episode at least. And so they'll take a movie that is rewatchable. It's something that you can whenever it comes on TV, you sit down and you rewatch it. And then they just talk about that movie and they break it down. And they have different topics to talk about with the movie, the different actors and all these. So they kind of segment it out to really break down the film.
Mhm.
And it's great because with rewatchables, you kind of sort by the movie. And so, if you're sorting through if you're on Spotify, like if we listen to it when we're going on like car rides
Mhm.
on long car rides, we'll look for like Terminator or
Got it.
whatever. And then you find that episode where they cover Terminator and you play that and you just listen to them really talk about it and gush over it. Because with the rewatchables, there's always somebody, and it's not everybody, but there's always someone on that particular episode. And every episode, there's not necessarily the same people on every episode. There's it's sometimes it's two people, sometimes it's three, sometimes it's four, but there's always someone on the episode that loves that particular movie. Sometimes it's multiple, but there's always at least one person that's like, this is the best thing ever. And so they just kind of gush over it.
Mhm.
And then you can kind of hear the other people like trying to understand what it is that's like what, but it's really cool. And so I think another podcast outside of this one that would be cool to do is not a replayable, which was one I was thinking about, was a replayable
Mhm.
podcast. I don't like that just because they're like a movie can be rewatchable because it's an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Yeah, it's tough to
two and a half
replay
sometimes.
like a longer game.
Some games have much higher replayability than others, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to a good game or a game that can be. Someone can have a favorite game that's not necessarily very replayable.
Yeah.
There can be a game that you love that you enjoyed that experience. You don't have to go back in and replay it again, but you really loved
It's
that
like the
experience.
Last of Us is a great example.
Yeah, 100%. Because once you play through that, um, there's really not much you're going to
Yeah,
miss.
yeah.
There's not much that you got to get back through there and try a different route and see how does it end this time. You know how it ends. Um, but I think if there was a podcast to have like just have people on, 2, 3, 4 people on, where each episode is dedicated to one game and you kind of break that game down, and someone on the episode has to be like a big fan of that game
Got
to
it.
really kind of champion it in a way, and then everyone just kind of talks about it in a semi organized way where there are segments to talk about each various aspects of the game,
Mhm.
maybe how the
Like
art
gameplay,
style, the
yeah.
gameplay, yeah,
I think that's
and
a
really
great
just
idea.
going over that. I think that would just be fun because it'd be fun to listen to. It would essentially just be a group of people just nerding out over a game.
Especially if you're able to get like game developers as well. Like that's so cool where it's like I see different things in my favorite games now that I've started developing games. I
Yeah.
see the little cheats they do. I see the little things that, they're problem solving. I see things where I'm like, wow, I would have never imagined to do this, or like, oh, I see that little mistake there. Um, yeah, it's almost like when you go to film school and then you watch movies and you can't watch a movie the same way again.
Yep. Yeah, you just start to see it. Which, by the way, last night we watched Scream 2.
Oh,
Not great.
we watched Terrifier too, that like clown one.
What is that?
I would
They made a sequel
not
to that. All
recommend
right.
it if you are squeamish.
Oh, that's a new movie
Yeah,
too.
because I didn't see
Okay.
the first one or anything. I've never heard of it, but I heard.
Oh, you started with 2.
Yeah, I've heard the second one was just like really like gory and like better than the first
Mm-hmm.
one and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
it was not great, but very very messed up.
Have you seen any of the Scream
I
movies?
saw the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
I've only
Back
seen
in
the first
I
one.
think first one was 1996
I do really
when
like
that
the
one came
first
out.
one. I love like parody movies or like comedy parody or like stuff like that or like genre blends like horror comedy. So I really like
Mm-hmm.
the first Scream.
Well, so the Scream movies, they're not the parody ones. The parody ones are scary movie.
Yeah, not like
So
parody,
you'll
but in
have
like a how Scream is still kind of like a horror comedy in a way there
it
in terms
is
of
like a
like
parody. Yeah.
yeah
I was saying that while we were watching it because so we went on a vacation, a mini vacation,
hmm
starting Thursday last week and ran over the weekend. And so we went to the mountains with this group that we go with every year, and we were because it's October, so
yeah
like
yeah
let's
of
get
course
some Halloween movies up. And so we were watching the original Scream one of the nights there, and during it I was like, this is like a parody. They can't. This isn't.
yeah
They're not taking this
yeah
serious. And it was. It's a thriller more than anything. It's like a
yeah
thriller type of thing, but it's like there are moments where it's hilarious. Like they fit in dubs. It was such a. It was weird because you have Drew Barrymore. Like the cast was legit.
yeah
Like
yeah
they're David Arquette.
yeah.
Uh, at the time, like that cast was no joke, and it's just the way that it was done. The sound effects were awful. Um, like every time a knife is waved, it sounds like it's being sharpened. Yeah, it's like the so overly done
yeah
sound effects. And then there were moments where an actor would say something and they would turn and say something else, and you could see they're like, shit, we can't film that again, we got to dub it. So they
yeah
dub over the English because they can't reshoot the scene. They did that multiple times. And just the way that the what's the character, what do they call that in Scream, the ghost
Ghostface,
face
I think that's
guy?
just his name.
Yeah, so that killer or killers, kind of spoiler, um
For like the 30-year-old
that
movie.
yeah, so that character, they just flail, which
hmm
is even funnier.
Oh,
Like they're
that's the
not
best
like
part. Yeah, they go up to somebody and he's like, oh.
it's the it's insane.
But it's done
It's
well
insane.
enough that like you buy it, you buy it and you're entertained enough where you're like, it's kind of part of the world.
There is one moment where there's this girl in the garage. It's close quarters, and he's coming at her with a
Oh, I
knife.
know which one
She
you're talking
opens the freezer door, and his body
about. Yeah,
flails to the ground. It's like, was that freezer
it's like
door
made of like
like,
stone.
yeah, what the hell was that? And there were just so many moments like that where like he gets easily tripped and
Yeah,
he's like overly dramatically
he's a
falling.
clumsy killer for sure.
It's insane. And it's one of those quintessential movies where the main person that they're trying to kill at the end, it's like when they're unmasked and you see like, oh, that's the killer or killers. But they had ample opportunities to kill the girl, a billion
Mhm.
opportunities to kill and they don't. They have a monologue they got to get through. They got a monologue they got to get
Mhm.
through, and then it was one of those quintessential movies where, um, well, at least the second one was where the lead character, she, you know, it's one of those moments where like they say they shoot someone, and then they have a one liner at the end of it.
Um,
Like it's awesome. It's just it's outstanding. It's one of those things where none of it makes any sense. I don't know why that became a thing
yeah.
ever. But that time period in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s
Mhm.
where that was just all that was. But yeah, so we were watching Scream 2 yesterday, and apparently there are 6 of them.
Yeah, that's a good one. I should. I've only seen the first one. I should check those out though.
Yeah, you should check out 2. You
Uh,
should check out 2.
hmm,
It gets worse.
okay.
Way worse. It's so bad that it's good. It's so bad that it's good. Especially now. Doesn't age well. Um it's yeah. It's a fun one to watch in October.
Have you guys played sort of like a couple game? Have you guys played It Takes Two?
No, but that one I remember when that came out.
You
That was like a contender for game of the
it
year.
won Game of the Year.
Oh yeah, it did, because that's when the guy did the Flip the Bird at
Yeah,
the Game
yeah.
Awards. Oh, what is his name? He is awesome.
That was
I saw that live.
I would you have to play that game. We're replaying It Takes Two. We're playing it for the second time. That game is so good. Especially I legitimately think it's the best co-op game I've ever played. It's like ridiculous everything that they're able to accomplish to get you guys to like work together, work apart, and
Yeah.
every world is its own mini game with its own gimmicks. So like one world is like a top down like dungeon crawler RPG where you have like mage mechanics. One world is like this ice skating world where you're in like this winter wonderland and you're skating around. One is underwater, and they each have their own cool little gimmicks that never overstay their welcome, but they're always super
Yeah.
unique and cool.
Is it split screen or is it shared?
Both. I usually is split screen, but then there's like some points where it's shared.
Okay.
The way they do it
Yeah.
is really well, and I think that's on Game Pass too. So I would highly recommend.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it is. That's one that I when I saw it and I saw that it was nominated for Game of the Year, um that was one of those like, because I knew it was a co-op and I don't ever play co-ops, um where I was like good for them. It was
Mhm.
like a bless his heart kind of moment, but it's one that I was intrigued by.
Yeah,
And
if I never
yeah,
played it,
so
I would have probably been like, I'm glad it got nominated, but I don't think it should have
yeah.
won.
Yeah.
But after playing it, I definitely think it should have won. That game is ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that
Yeah,
out.
that's
I
a great couple game for sure.
Is it like a comedy or
Oh
what's the
yeah,
tone?
it's like a really messed up comedy because you guys play as parents who are getting divorced, um
Mm,
and then basically the whole game is like you guys rekindling your marriage almost, but there's a lot of like really real dark like moments in it, but it's done very
yeah.
like lightheartedly or a matter of fact. So it's definitely a comedy, but it deals with some pretty serious subject matter as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. I was just looking at it on Steam again, and it yeah, if that's on Game Pass, I might check that out tonight.
Yes.
But yeah, the lead over there at what's the developer? Um
Yeah, the he's like the foreign guy, I forget his name. He's really cool though.
I saw that live when he was like flipping the bird, and I was like, this guy's my spirit
He's
animal.
so
I was
cool.
like,
And then
I
I think he announced Game of the Year the next year. I wonder what they're cuz I think they made that prison escape game.
A Way Out.
that I
Yep.
am forgetting the name of for some reason, and then they made It Takes Two. So I wonder what they'll do next.
Yeah. So the prison one was A Way Out,
Yeah.
and that one also did really well.
Yeah, and that was good. I played
Yeah.
that one. It was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. It Takes Two though is definitely their elite one so far.
I like that there's a developer that's embracing co-op and
Hmm.
embracing the unique opportunities that having two players on a split screen or two players playing at the same time presents,
Yeah, and
because it's a smaller.
that's a cool one because like you can't play that like Cuphead. You can play alone, if you want to. It's more
Mhm.
fun with two players. But It Takes Two. Yeah,
Yeah.
strictly you like can't play it with one person.
Cuphead's so tough. I've
Yeah.
tried on so many separate occasions to like really chug through it, and I think I'm in the early stages of that. Even with the new DLC that came out, I think last
Hmm.
year,
Yeah.
um, I'm trying to get into it, and it's just so difficult. I've beaten Elden Ring. There's Dark Souls games I've beaten. I can't get through that game.
Cuphead
It's so
is
tough.
tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. It's a beautiful game though.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
That one I reached out to the team prior to the game coming out to see if they needed uh, help. Obviously they didn't. But that was one where I stumbled on it and I didn't know how big it was going to be.
Oh yeah, yeah, like
I
the
thought that,
Studio MDE8 something, I forget what they're called, but yeah, yeah, and I think it's like two brothers too, which is really cool.
yep, yep. Yeah, I reached out to them. Another one that I almost worked on that I had met with was Hollow Knight.
Oh yeah, that's a
That one
good
early
one.
on, I met with that team early on, and I was very unprepared for that meeting.
Oh
Admittedly,
no.
it was really early. It might have been my second year doing this,
Okay.
and I had stumbled on it through a content creator. Oh, I wish I'd remember their name. They had played an early build of it,
Hmm.
and they were shouting like, "This is gonna be, this is
Yeah.
crazy." And I remember just seeing it in motion. I was like, "Yeah, that is crazy."
Hmm.
And little did I know that one was going to be one of the best Metroidvanias ever.
Yeah.
It was that one I was kicking myself, and I had messaged them multiple times. At one point, I messaged them and said, "Look, I will work on this for free. Like, let me get some, let me help and provide a service here
Yeah,
because
yeah,
this is
just to be
insane."
involved with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get in there and see what I could help them with, like, extra hand and any additional media outreach, influencer, whatever. Like, I'm here. And but yeah,
I'm not sure if
I
you
don't know. That one.
heard my dog just there, but she was
Yeah,
barking
about to
throughout
make another appearance.
that. She hasn't jumped up yet. She hasn't jumped up, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been good. But yeah, so with Midnight Acres, the last time we spoke, you had a trailer that you showed
Hmm.
off, gameplay trailer, showed off fishing
Hmm.
and then spelunking a bit. And so, is there any more that you can kind of expand on with the gameplay of Midnight Acres leading up to the launch? Which recording of this is the 23rd, launch being in 2 days on the
Yes. So
25th.
I mean, it's probably going to be out by now. But I think since we've talked, a lot of what I've been trying to do has been sort of more of the polishing realm of like
Mm-hmm.
polishing everything, trying my best to optimize everything. Um,
Yeah.
the something important I think was I needed some sort of like end game thing, some sort of like end game goal for the player to achieve, so they're not just like wandering around their farm. So I added that,
Mm-hmm.
like I added sort of like a magical crop to find the magic seeds around the world and grow that, and that's sort of like once you do that, you beat the game, but you can still do
Mm-hmm.
your farm and stuff like that. So that was sort of one of those things that could have been a scope issue, but was like, all right, that's an important thing that I need to add for people to buy the game.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's mostly just been polishing, like sound effects, UI, like the little things like that, game testing. Uh, but
Yep.
it's definitely tricky with as a solo dev, trying to find
Yeah.
all of the issues, trying to find all of the suggestions, trying to do, all of that. It's definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said that you're going to be releasing during Screamfest. I'm trying to
Yeah,
make sure I have that
so
right.
which was cool. Steam reached out and invited Midnight Acres to be a part of their Steam Scream. I think it's called like the Revenge or something Halloween event. So that's cool
Yep.
because the game comes out on the 25th and the Halloween event is on the 26th. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
right around there. So I'm hoping that that gets a little more engagement and stuff like that as well. But yeah,
Yeah. And do you have a demo, or will you have a demo at some point in the future?
no, it's going to be fully releasing on the 25th, so no demo or anything.
Yeah, but I mean, in the future, you're going to have like a demo available for people to try prior to making that
Oh,
purchase
I
decision.
think so. That's something I've been kind of like going back and forth on, and that's like the struggle of like again where it's like where do you put your time in terms of like I'd rather
Yeah,
start
yeah.
working on a different game than keep working on this or content
Hmm.
updates instead of just a demo.
Yep.
So that's sort of just the struggle. I would like to have a
Yeah.
demo, but I'm not sure how feasible that is.
Yeah. I get
Yeah,
it. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's a part of working on smaller teams is you've got to scope those things out, and you might hear from people that there's a lot of benefits to a demo, but like you said, the time that you're going to be spending on that, you could be spending on new content
yeah,
or an entirely new game. There's so many different ways you could be spending that time. Um, so yeah, speaking of a new game, have you started working on anything new?
yeah. I'm
Uh,
working on one. It's like in the super duper early stages, but it's like a really cool I kind of wanted to go back to FPS and like I was
okay.
saying, sort of smaller scale. So
Hmm.
this is kind of a cool game where it's almost like a bullet hell in a way FPS where all of the projectile shot are pretty slow, so it's all about like dodging and stuff.
Hmm.
And you control the bullets that you fire, almost like that movie like Wanted. Remember that with like Angelina
Yeah.
Jolie?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like you shoot the bullet and you have very limited ammo in terms of like some guns have like one bullet. So you shoot it and you like move it in a way where like you get a collateral or puzzle solve where the bullet, hits different things. So I'm trying to kind of really make that gameplay loop enjoyable and fun and unique in terms of that. Like some slow-mo, some bullet time, some bullet hell, a bunch of things like that combined.
Awesome. And with going back to Midnight Acres, that one I can't see. I just had it up. Is that going to be localized for any other languages outside of English?
No, unfortunately, that's not now. I've had some people start reaching out to me,
Uh huh.
but no, I mean that's not now. There's good thing no real dialogue or anything like that. There's just a few texts
Yeah, that's what
here
I
and
was going to
there,
ask about.
so you can totally play the game with any language. So it's not the most dire thing for me to do right now, but it's something I would like to do for sure.
Yeah, that could be something. Going back to that video, and I'll send it to you after the call. From Steam, one of their biggest tips is localization.
Yeah.
Um, Not just of, or rather, you can do it of the store page at first. Just get this,
Hmm.
especially for a game like Midnight Acres, if it's not dialogue heavy.
Hmm.
Um, then from that perspective, you can do this store page itself. That'll increase discoverability
Got it.
uh, by itself, and then obviously adding update for language support
Hmm.
in game obviously opens it. It just widens the net, and it just depends on the game. But sometimes widening that net for a particular game um, can bring a positive ROI. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will. But it's one of that along with just being accurate with your tags,
Yeah,
accurate tags, localization of the store page and of the game are both
for
huge.
sure.
And again, for a game like Midnight Acres, and this is similar to, there's a game by Jason Newman. I spoke with him on his game Isles of Sea and
Mhm.
Sky. It was Akura. In the game design, he wanted to make it so, or one of the things that he's done, one of the results of the way that the game is designed is that it's localized, because like there's no text.
Mhm.
So the game, it's a puzzle game, so you can do that where you can communicate what you need to communicate within the game itself,
Got it.
in how the game mechanics. So that game, it's much easier to say is
Mhm.
localized now, than other games. So Midnight Acres might be one of those types of games where you can kind of reap the benefits of that.
For sure. Yeah,
Uh,
I've had a few,
you know,
which is cool, just because like I've had some people reach out to me. I've had a few publishers reach out to me, wanting to see if they could
nice.
publish Midnight Acres, but it was sort of this struggle of like the game's already coming out um, pretty
Yep.
soon, and there's not much they can change right now. But maybe trying to get them involved earlier with the second game, you know. But yeah, I've had a few publishers reach out. I've had a few translators reach out. Um,
Hmm.
and I've noticed, like I said, each game, more and more people reach out. I think the last game I made, Animalistic, I had one publisher reach out after the game got released. And with this one, I
Hmm.
had like four reach out prior to the game's release. So
Yeah.
it's like the slowly building, you know?
Yeah, and you can even start to, with your next game, you can start to build a game out for a specific publisher. Some of the larger end or higher end publishers, they have a specific type of game that fits within their
Mhm.
portfolio, like games that really feature guns,
For
like
sure.
Wizard with a gun, Gunbrella. Um, that Devolver, you can, if you have a game that fits, that edgy kind of theme, you know, gun or weapon dense, they're one to approach
For sure.
early on. Have you thought of doing like a 2D game, or are you more, you have a lot more fun with the 3D?
Um, Personally, even just like from a consumer standpoint, I've never been the biggest 2D fan. The
Yeah.
fact that I like Stardew Valley as much as I do is like shocking to me because I don't like 2D and I
Yeah.
don't like pixel either. Um, so usually like that, like I couldn't really get into Hollow Knight. I couldn't really get
Hmm.
into Undertale, a lot of those. So I just
Yeah.
don't have a lot of enjoyment with 2D. So I think I would prefer to stick to 3D. Unless of course like there's a game that I come up with that, is calling for 2D, then I'd make it. But I don't think
Sure.
I would do that.
Yeah. Well, the idea with the curving the bullet and all that might lead to something that could be, you know, logical to pitch to a developer, in a
I
way.
think so. I mean,
There's a lot of those.
yeah,
Um,
I've it's in the super early stages, but I think once I build out a few like
yeah.
prototype levels, I would definitely want to reach out to a few publishers like Devolver Digital and see if they'd be interested, see if they'd take my call.
What I love about them specifically from a marketing standpoint is they obviously understand what drives discoverability for games, but they don't leave any stone kind of unturned. They have like a social media strategist to get in
Oh
there
yeah,
and handle games from a social media side of things. They obviously have people to handle the PR work that content creators and influencers are going to cover, but the social media side of things is the interesting one for me, because a lot of publishers, they don't want to deal with that. There's a lot of resources involved, or at least time involved, in handling a social media strategy for a game, and they just want to leave that to the developer to just, you handle that. We're going to deal with advertising, and we're going to deal with paying influencers and and all that good stuff. But Devolver, they do the whole, you get the kitchen sink
Yeah,
in a way.
which is good because I know from my perspective the social media stuff sucks. I hate it. Yeah, all of the
Yeah.
it's gnarly.
I'm just starting to find more of an appreciation there too, because doing Indie Wolverine and marketing for video game studios, I had been really PR and influencer marketing dense in terms of the services that I had been offering. A lot of that was under those two
Mhm,
buckets, um, because I found a lot of value there. I've never been one to want to tell a client or potential client, all right, we're going to need to assign 50,000 or allocate $50,000 for content creators for the
mhm,
launch to pay them. I've always been on the side of, let's handle the PR properly to earn coverage organically from media, and then also work with content creators and influencers again from an organic standpoint where we're reaching out to them based off of research,
mhm,
and you know assuming that based off of what they've played and how long they've played games X, Y, and Z that are similar to your game, we can make an educated assumption that they're going to like your game, and we'll add them to our list to pitch to leading up to your
mhm.
launch, and try to get them to play the game on their own without receiving payment. Um, I've found for indies or small budget games that's been a cost efficient way of going about things. But the one thing that I had neglected for a long time was social media, because, like you, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's such a time sink. But over time, I just started to cope with the fact, or at least acknowledge the fact that it's not really what I like. Like, I have TikTok on my phone. I don't use TikTok
Yeah.
personally, but I know that people that are going to potentially buy my clients' games, they use TikTok. They love it. They use it all the time. They use YouTube, Shorts, Reels on Instagram and Facebook, and they're on X, and they're on all these platforms. And so if they're there, I got to be there. And so over the last few years, that's been another massive element, or service rather, that I've been focusing on, is the grind of social media.
Yeah.
And I just have this appreciation for it. When I found the other day, I'd stumbled on one of the social media strategists of Devolver. I was like, oh my God, they do that too. That's outstanding. Because that's where you can really generate a ton of momentum
Oh yeah.
on social media if you literally do it every day.
Yeah.
And you have to do it every day on every platform. You have to do Twitter or X. You have to do YouTube with shorts. You have to do reels on Instagram. You've got to be on TikTok. You've got to be on every one of these major social channels, and you've got to post every single day on all of them. And that's where repurposing for indies is a big deal. So what I've been doing for my clients is grabbing gameplay clips or raw gameplay footage, and then taking the clips and you know posting one day one gameplay clip from trailer, clipping it out, posting it in the TikTok format, then taking it, reposting it on YouTube as a short, reposting on Instagram as a reel, reposting it on Facebook as a reel, and then posting it on Twitter later that
Mhm.
day as a tweet. But it's literally the same piece of
Yeah.
content, but at the end of the day it ends up being 5 new pieces of content, minimum.
Mhm.
But ideally I do that twice a day, so that gives 10 pieces of content every single day,
Jeez. Yeah.
for a client. But in reality it's only
Yeah.
2, because but you just repurpose it and post. But the idea there is that when you do that, you generate this momentum, because PR in media outreach, it's condensed and it's around a specific moment of a game,
Mhm.
a game's production. You have these moments where you have a release date announcement. That's a newsworthy
Yeah.
moment. That's a moment where you can create a trailer for it, and you can make this loud noise, and then hope that media covers it, and that other people on social cover it. But if you only lean on PR, it's going to fail, because you're going to be a blip. Even if you get covered, you're a blip, and then you go away. And then if you do PR and you get influencers and content creators to play your game, well, now you have a little bit more momentum, because you have more long-term
Mhm.
exposure to the market. So if you have a content creator or influencer playing your game around the launch window, and you get a bunch of them to play it around that launch window, coupled with reviews from media, well, now you're getting in front of your potential customers in different
Yeah.
areas. So now you're kind of like expanding the scope of discoverability. But again, it's still in a limited short time span. So even if you do hit and you check those boxes, it's still a blip, but it's a blip that converts more sales than just PR or just content creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that missing element is the momentum, that long-term momentum, which comes from social media in between your news beats.
Yeah.
So you can have your game reveal, you can make a big push, PR push for that, and then you have that big spike, and then social media content there to continue being active literally every single day until your next big moment. And so you're just having this slow and steady uptick and slow and steady uptick. And then over time, it's this gradual growth and momentum, and your followers go up, and more people know you exist, and you're not an afterthought. You're still top of mind. Um, and in doing that, leading up to a launch, then everything comes together to make, this big, launch and ideally a lot of sales. But that momentum has to be there. And that's where social media comes in. Um, and again, if you do that and you just grind it out, you save so much money.
Hmm.
But instead of just, you know, putting aside, like some games, it's a million plus.
Yeah.
They put aside budget just to throw at content creators and influencers. I think that's just lazy. It's kind of like I don't know. It's a lazy thing. And a long time ago, I had interviewed at a large publisher, and I'd gotten through 4 rounds of interviews.
Jeez.
And at the end, they decided to go with someone else, and they told me, look, we love what you do. We love how creative and crafty you've been with the campaigns that you've done. But we work with budgets that are multi-million dollar budgets. You've never worked with a budget like that. And we need to know that you can handle that type of budget with ad spend and with spending that, towards advertisements, towards content creators and influencers. And my argument was, I've done more effective
With
campaigns
less money.
with
Yeah.
1% of that or less, like literally a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that. And I'm much more proud to say that than to be one of the old school mentality where, well, we need, $3 million to run your marketing
Yeah.
campaign. I don't need that crutch. And so, but social media was that thing for me when I
Got it.
realized, and it, that needs to be a thing that gets worked on every day. And even though I don't like it personally, because I don't, um, like I don't use Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't use like all of these platforms. I haven't used, or I don't like them, but it doesn't matter because I know customers are there. So I have to be there.
For sure.
And not only do I have to be there, I have to understand them really well. So I need to put in the time for research and, understand what types of content are going to do better on various platforms, what time of day to post. And it's a gradual learning process on something you may not even like.
Yeah.
Um,
Sort of like
but it's just a part of the
yeah,
grind.
like that kind of like I guess for the people who like have no budget or a very very minimal budget, because like everything you were saying kind of is like what I'm doing on a very smaller scale, in terms of like I definitely don't do the social media as much as I should or at all. And that's something I've
Yeah.
known for a while where it's like, and I go through phases in terms of like, there's like a month where I'm like, oh, I'm posting every day. I'm doing so good. And
Yep.
then, I just fall off and I don't do it. Um,
It just requires that
you know,
long-term
yeah,
commitment,
it's
you
just,
know?
it's the struggle. But then it's just like, for the other people where it's like, choose where your money's going in terms of like Google ads are great. But, like I was saying, they were costing me so much money. And I was like, okay, how many times have I actually clicked on a YouTube ad before a video? Not a lot. I don't think I've
Yep.
actually ever done it. So then, yeah, I was like,
I personally haven't either.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, all right, I'll maybe stop because I have the very limited budget. All right, stop the money going there and only focus on the Reddit ads, like I was saying, because that is a few where it's like if I see something on Reddit that's interested me, then maybe I will click on it. Another one that sort of when you were talking about influencers was a very good point was I used Keymailer, the website Keymailer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to send game keys to influencers. So I started doing that like a month ago, which was cool because now I'm starting
Mm-hmm.
to get a flux, kind of like you were saying, of influencers playing the game and releasing the game like the past week to now, which is good. I've been
Mm-hmm.
seeing that, and I just did. Keymailer allows for a $75 ad for a week for $75.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's a handful of platforms that are like Keymailer that do that same
mhm.
thing, where they have content creators there, and influencers, and then you just upload keys and they go in and redeem them. You get real time reporting,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and that type of stuff. They're nice to have. It's but yeah, it's a grind, and
it
it's something
is.
that now, like when I'm meeting with potential clients, I'm always wanting at least 6 months
Yeah.
of like before launch, because it's all about momentum. There are too many games, especially now, really good games that are releasing nonstop.
Mhm.
And so the only thing that you can do to combat that, you're never going to pick the right date. Maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, you could pick a week out of the year and be like, that's no one's releasing at that
Yeah.
time. I can dominate this. This is my week. That's going to be my week. You can't do it
Yeah.
anymore. There's never, the right time will never exist. And so you have to, again, use social media and and I will say one thing I've liked about doing social media every day is that quantity is leading to quality.
Hmm.
So just posting every day, I don't care.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
For myself or my clients, and I'm clear about that with my clients. Like when we start posting on social media at the start, I don't
Mhm.
care. It's going to be gameplay. It's going to be gameplay oriented. We're going to show the game in motion. And in terms of, oh, it got, no visibility or no engagement, I don't
Yeah.
care. At the start, it does not matter. All that matters is you have those at bats. It's like any like sport. You're never going to get good at it until you do it, and you do it over and over, and anything in life, until you get the reps. And the same thing with social media, until you get the reps and you're doing the video editing and you're doing, or let me do hashtag research, and okay, the first 2 seconds of this video, what do I put, and the thumbnail, how do I do the thumbnail? And but over time, not only do you start to get your thumb closer to the pulse of what
Hmm.
works, but you get better and more efficient at each new
Hmm.
post. And so it gets faster and more efficient, and a little bit easier. But it's just stringing together those at bats and doing it every day. Like what I do now is, like, I wake up at 5 in the morning, I make a coffee, and that's the first thing I do for the. That's 5 in the morning is when I do the social media stuff for the
Hmm.
day, for myself, for my clients. That's when I'm like, all right, time to create content. Because to create, a video for, say, TikTok that I can repurpose on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and so on, it can take anywhere as short as like 15 minutes to do, or up to an
Hmm.
hour. But if I bang it out in the morning, that's the day right there. All the social media content for the day is
Hmm.
done right there. And then I just get it. Then it's about the captions and the description and the hashtags and figuring that out. But then at that point, like from a social media standpoint, today's
Yeah.
checked, good to go, and it's not even breakfast time. So like it's nice to do that, and then just making sure that that's done every single day. Um, like when I'm working with a new client, they have a brand new account. If I get one like from a stranger, that might even be a bot, but I don't care. It's like, all right, cool, that's more than we
Yeah.
had. And then it turns into 3 likes and then 5 likes, and and then you get 5 views, and now you got 100, and now it's 500, 600, and now you're over 1,000. It's, you get those wins every
Hmm.
day. You get wins every single day, so it doesn't matter. All that matters is getting those at bats and stringing together consistent days, because then you start, just again, you're building that momentum, and you're growing your following. And so it complements it. I kick myself for all those years early on when I was just doing
Hmm.
PR and influencer and content creator outreach, because I was good at it. And especially with PR, that was one where it was like, I can get really creative here, and I know I can do really well there. But it didn't work all the
Mm,
time because, God forbid your campaign falls flat and you don't get picked up. Well, now you have no
yeah.
fallback. Now you have no visibility, no fallback. No one knows you exist. You're dead. Um, but if it does get picked up, I saw over time the results of those moments when you get picked up, even if you're getting picked up by IGN or Kotaku or Destructoid or GameSpot, the the results get diminished as the years have gone on because of their content output.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
And so,
they release so many videos now daily where, you don't know what to watch. Yeah.
and they have to.
Yeah.
They have to, but and again, but the problem is for the games that they cover that don't get long-term coverage, like AAA's, they'll
Mhm.
cover the like Zelda, they'll cover that for a month and you'll just get different pieces of content for Zelda. But for like an indie or really most 9 out of 10 games, you get a featured post. You get your review or the preview post or whatever it is. Um, and that's what you get for that news
Yeah.
beat, that newsworthy moment. Um, and so the result, and if you don't have a call to action, it's even worse because then you had your moment, people
Yeah.
didn't really know where to go, and now you lost it. And so, with PR, if you're just doing that, you've got to hope the game is outstanding. And and from that standpoint, you're not even doing marketing right then because you're hoping that the game is so good that it kind of uh, overcompensates for your failure in the marketing department.
Yeah, and sometimes
And
that'll
you can't
happen in
just do
terms of like,
influencers.
some gem will come out of nowhere,
Yep.
and just take the world by storm, sort of like Stardew Valley or something like that. But that's so,
Yep.
so rare to do, especially nowadays.
It's really rare. And also, what's interesting is there are potential clients that I meet with that they mention those types of games as what they think they're going to be. And they'll say, we're launching next month. And then I look at their Steam charts and I see like, oh, you have 2
Yeah.
followers on your Steam page. It's not going to happen because at that point, it's essentially like going to Vegas with your rent
Yeah.
and saying, I'm putting it all on black. I'm going to hit. And in fact, doing it that way, you have even more
Yeah.
of a chance of winning in Vegas. So, but it's essentially gambling when you don't have like this long-term momentum built up, because that long-term momentum is basically equity that you're building the whole way through because you're establishing this. It's like your floor, you're
Mhm.
raising the floor, the longer that you go. um and again, it was just something that I had, it took me so long to just embrace it because I'm not the type of person that likes to be on those platforms, but there's an absurd value there. And with Devolver having that social media strategist kind of department where they have a few people that do that
Yeah.
for their
That's
games,
super smart.
that is a publisher that they go above and beyond. And on top of that, not only do they do their marketing great and the way that they allocate their budgets for their clients is absurd with in terms of the trailers that they get
Yeah.
edited or the trailers that they get cut for them, outstanding. So in terms of marketing asset deliverables, outstanding. Their PR is great. In fact, I saw a game that prior to working with Devolver, they did an announcement, an official reveal, an official announcement, and it was picked up by a few media outlets. Then there was a point where they were picked up by Devolver. Devolver said, "Screw it, we don't care. We're Devolver. You're going to do that same announcement again. We're going to give you a new asset." So they had the same news beat. It was the same. It was proud to
Oh my
reveal
God.
X game. That game had already been revealed like 3 months
Yeah.
prior. They didn't care
Yeah.
because they were like, we can get better results than you got on that first attempt. We're going to run it
Yeah.
back. And they had a new trailer and it did great. But from a PR standpoint, they're top tier. In terms of content creators and influencers, top tier. The marketing assets they create are great. They have a social media strategy side of things that it kind of goes above and beyond in a way. But on top of that, and this is what I believe Raw Fury does as well, um, is they have these broadcast or these festivals, like these digital events, kind of like Nintendo Direct.
Oh,
Devolver
they
has
do.
their own
Yeah,
version
they
of
do
that.
have those. I know, like Devolver just had
That's
one.
a unique.
Yeah.
It's a unique added value. That's a unique added value, and I believe it's Raw Fury who also does
I
it.
think you're right.
And they have a partnership with Steam where they'll have a publisher sale as well. So some publishers have those publisher sales. That's another added
Yeah.
value that not every publisher can give you. And when that happens, what they do is not only are they selling games that are discounted within their portfolio, but they're promoting upcoming games to wishlist during those
Hmm.
sales. And that is something I've seen when I'm doing my competitive analysis. There are games that you'll see their follower chart kind of going and going, and then a big spike. And it's like, where did that come from? And then I'll isolate the dates and I'll see, oh shit, the publisher ran a publisher sale on Steam, but that ended up driving all this
Yeah.
visibility to their unreleased games that were on the way. So there are some publishers that have the ability to add additional value where others literally
Hmm.
can't because they don't have the cachet with Steam to be able to do a publisher sale, or they don't take the time to invest the resources to do their own Nintendo Direct type
Yeah.
of event. And so to find publishers that can do that on top, it's like this multiple cherries on
Yeah.
top, and it's just outstanding because you can't replicate that as a marketing studio either. So if you're an indie and you're looking to get marketing support, there are certain things that certain publishers can get you in terms of visibility that doesn't exist with marketing teams because they don't have a Nintendo
Yeah.
Direct type of presentation, and they don't have a publisher because they're not a publisher. Um, I don't know how I got on that rant about Devolver,
Well, no, yeah,
but
and it's like what we were
they're
saying,
really
where
good.
yeah, and since you know that their quality is good, you want to watch their direct and all of that because you're like, I know all of these
Yeah.
games are going to be good quality. I know they're all going to be unique indie games because that's all they do. So they
Yep.
really have like a smart, almost like monopoly on like certain genres of like the indie games.
Their branding is top
Yeah.
tier. And that was something they did. They knocked that out of the park early, the Devolver Digital branding. Because when you thought Devolver Digital 10 years ago, there was always a gut feeling associated with it that was very distinct, at least for
Hmm.
me. Kind of like an indie rock
Kind of,
label.
yeah.
Um, that's what it was, 10 years ago. When you would think of Devolver and the games that would be it in another way that you can kind of identify if it's a good brand in terms of a publisher is if you can have a game that you can clearly state that would be a good fit for their particular portfolio. If you see a game and one of the first things you think of is, oh, that's a Devolver game
Yeah.
or that's a Raw Fury game, you know, when you can, or Chucklefish was one. They haven't been as, you know,
Yeah. No, I've
loud as
definitely
they've been in the
heard of them
past.
though. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Chucklefish was one, especially back in the day, where it was like you'd come across these 2D RPGs, this pixel art, beautiful pixel art RPG type games. It's like, yep, that's a Chucklefish game.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't, you'd be like, that you should be with
Yeah.
them. Um, but that's the sign of a top tier brand in terms of a publisher,
Yeah.
and that's something I always wanted to get into. Even early on, that was always my end, like kind of my end game, or my goal was to go from Indie Wolverine to then doing a publisher. Um, but yeah, I have such an appreciation for publishers, especially like the really good ones,
Yeah.
and all the work that they're able to do um, to amplify these games. This added value that's absurd with some of them.
Yeah. Because they're all just like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they wear so many hats, you know. They do so many
Yeah,
jobs for you, you know.
yeah. Some and nowadays there's boutique publishers that are popping up, which is getting really interesting, where they won't provide funding, but they will provide
Yeah,
services.
yeah, like they
So
provide
they'll
the
say
localization or they provide like
like
yeah,
porting.
porting for the platforms and stuff like that, which is super smart.
Hmm.
I think we need like more publishers just because the more
Yep.
publishers there are, the more little niches that they'll cover, the more games they'll cover. Yeah, I think the more publishers the better.
Yeah, the boutique idea I'd started seeing a few years ago, and that's one that I'm still to this day like I may in the future that may be a route I
Mhm.
go is to pivot and start a boutique
Yeah.
publisher. Cuz then at that point like, yes, can't provide the funding at this moment, but over time, then you become a boutique publisher and then start to expand, and then you have a clear path for growth.
Yeah,
Then you have that clear, like, okay, then we can expand our offerings and become, or strive to be a devolver and offer the full,
for sure.
kitchen
For
sink.
sure.
But yeah, that's something that there are always these kind of like localization publishers too, where it's like if you're trying to get into China, well,
Yeah, no, and I've
this
had a few
publisher will.
reach out to me where it's like excuse me, what's going
I
on?
can't see her.
Yeah, we're like,
Oh,
a fully, like Chinese company will like reach out to me and be like, well, that's all we do. All we do is publish
yeah,
for China and localize for China. Um,
yeah.
which,
It's a good
yeah.
move. I mean, if you can nail that down, and you have a good eye for what's going to work over
Mhm.
there, that's an outstanding offering.
Yeah.
To be able to handle that. Yeah. But I can hear her. She's having a good
Hey,
time.
get over here. What are you doing?
My goodness.
There's some stuff going on outside. I'm hearing like banging and stuff, like car doors or something. Come here.
Yeah, we've had some construction going on outside of our
Oh
place too. I
yeah?
hope it hasn't been picked up on the mic.
I haven't heard any. I haven't heard anything.
They're tearing up the street and they're repaving. So, there. Yep, there she is.
Come
She got a little vest on. My
here.
goodness. She's getting camera shy now.
Yeah, can you see her in the corner there? Just
Yeah.
sitting there?
Yep. But she's blending in with the bookcase a little bit.
She's so black. When it's nighttime,
Yeah.
you can't even see her eyes or anything. It's just like a demon shadow.
I just saw a floating vest. Basically.
Floating a yellow vest right there. I'm excited. I'm excited to finally release it. I'm nervous, of course. There's a
Yeah.
lot. It's always nerve-wracking releasing a game, especially just being a solo dev,
Uh-huh.
just because there's not a lot of resources you have. But it's exciting. It's exciting for sure.
Oh yeah. I bet. And it's really cool that you get to be a part of the Halloween, kind of
Yeah,
festival
I've
that's
never
going
been in
on
a
for
Steam
it.
festival, so I'm curious how it's gonna.
Oh
No,
really?
I've never been in one. This is the first one they invited me to, so I'm curious how it's gonna correlate to like my past games and all of that.
Yeah. That's cool. That's going to be. Have you used any of your visibility rounds with any of the other games too?
I did for my past games, so I definitely will
Okay.
for this one for sure.
Yeah. If you've got any left, it could be good to use them on the other ones and then embed into their page Midnight
Oh, I
Acres.
think I still should have a
So
few, so I'll check that out.
that could be a nice way to, kind of send some visibility or traffic over to the Midnight
For
Acres
sure.
page around the launch.
Well, we'll see. I know a
Um,
lot of my previous games would get like 10 wish lists before it actually released, and then boost from there. But this one already,
yeah, you're going to get a
yeah,
boost
this one has
after for sure.
800 wish lists though, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a nice bump up, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, you should definitely see a nice little increase after
Yeah,
launch too. And then launching now, I don't know what the window is offhand when you technically can discount it
a
again
month.
or like take part in a sale. A
Yeah, I think
month?
30 days.
Okay. Okay. So there might be a Black Friday winter sale
Yeah, I think
thing.
there's usually like an autumn sale. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure if I'll be able
Yep.
to join that one, but I'll definitely be able to join like a Christmas one or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. And this is coming to Steam. Do you have any other platforms that this might be coming
No, it's
to
just
in
Steam
the
right
future?
now, but I know with my previous game, Animalistic, a publisher reached out after the game's release
Mm-hmm.
and is currently
Yeah.
porting the game to other consoles. So that could happen for this as well. After it releases, it gets reached out to and somebody
Yeah.
wants to port it or something like that.
That's awesome.
So we'll see.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking for. Steam Deck. Did we talk about that before about being Steam Deck verified?
Yeah.
Okay, so is that going to be Steam Deck verified at launch?
Uh,
Is this one of the ones where it's difficult? Like I had heard from other developers that depending on the game and I guess the editor that it's built in, it's like sometimes it can be really difficult to be verified
yeah,
with
I don't even want to
Steam
like
Deck.
look at it for this one because this one was made with Unreal Engine 5, which makes it look really pretty and cool, but causes a few issues with lower computers with just like other games
Yeah,
that I've seen not being able to run through Steam. So I don't think Steam Deck is gonna like it very much.
gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna try it on the Steam Deck and we'll see
You
how it
let me
does.
know.
Maybe it's awesome. Maybe it
It'll be
works.
either like really
There's a lot of
good.
games that are like that.
Maybe it's like 5 frames per second though. That's like what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
expecting.
yeah, yeah.
It's probably
Really?
going to be like a
Oh, I'm
slideshow for you.
that's gonna be the first thing I do, man. I'm just booting it up on the Steam Deck
No.
right away. I need to see how it works. Like I need
Oh
to
my
see
god.
because I mean I can get Cyberpunk running on the Steam Deck. I mean it's not obviously you got to turn everything down to
Oh
water,
well.
but um, yeah,
Well, let me know.
we'll see.